Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Inwarp Mag. I'm Drew,
And I'm Brooke.
and before we get started, we're going to give you guys an introduction of what we plan to do with this show. Normally, we're not going to do this in every episode going forward. We'll get into the topic as quickly as possible, but it only makes sense since this is our first episode to give you guys some context about what this show is going to be about. But before we get started, you have a drink in front of yourself, Brooke?
Yeah, I have a Bell's Hazy Hearted IPA. What about you?
Sounds good. I got a 1792 bourbon. Haven't had it before,
Ooh,
but it's pretty good. I like it.
yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So, if you guys haven't picked it up yet, if you're a little slow, you can see a little space marine in the top right corner. We're talking about warping. This is a Warhammer 40K podcast slash YouTube channel. What we really want to do is just document our experience of playing Warhammer 40K from the perspective of new players. Brooke and I have never played full scale Warhammer 40K in our lives, so we're going to give it a try now in 10th edition. So we just
I
go ahead.
I once dreamed of playing 40K back in ninth edition, but never pulled the trigger. I bought in ninth edition. I bought an army that we'll talk about, but I never played it. So 10th edition it is.
Yeah, I think we both talked about it back in ninth about the idea of playing it, but it was just so complex. We just never got into it. And one of the goals of 10th edition was to simplify the rules, which appealed to both of us. Coming from other games, we kind of felt like it was something we could jump into. But do you want to talk about some of our prior experience in other war games, Brooke?
Yeah, so we kind of started in at least me and you, we started playing Kill Team together, and that was kind of our intro, Kill Team 2.0. And we started there, and we were pretty excited when it came out with the compendium. I bought the compendium, which was a huge mistake, but we got into the game. I built a Space Marine list, and Drew built an Orc list, and we played that a lot together. Um, but we kind of quickly went away from that because the compendium lists were not super fun. And then I was into Star Wars Legion at the time, and I ended up getting Drew into Star Wars Legion with me and a couple of my other friends, and we played Star Wars Legion, which really appealed to us. The rule set is really good in Star Wars Legion, and it is a lot simpler than Ninth Edition was.
And you would
But when
sort of say that people consider Star Wars Legion a beginner wargaming game, right?
Yeah, it is a lot simpler in how you move. It is a lot simpler in the rules for shooting and defense and all that. There's no real math to it. It's pretty straightforward. It almost feels like a board game kind of built into a war game, which makes sense because it came from Fantasy Flight, which is originally a board game company. But we really like that rule set. At least I do, and it feels a lot simpler, and we like that. So when 10th edition came out and their emphasis was on simplifying the rules, it really appealed to us. And we already liked 40K to begin with because we played Kill Team, and I know Drew was looking for a larger 40K game than Kill Team.
Yeah, definitely. Like the orcs are one of my favorites, but when you play the greenskins list in Kill Team, which is kind of like not a playable list, everybody plays the commandos because they're much better. Um, they they just die pretty quickly because you got those T-shirt saves, and
Yeah,
it doesn't really play into that horde mode that the orcs are known for, where it's like quality through quantity, and that's what I've been missing out with Warhammer. But yeah, so that's the main reason we've decided to start doing Warhammer, just with the changes to 10th edition. So this is gonna just kind of document our journey of learning Warhammer. So hopefully eventually we're going to become, we're not going to be novice players. We'll be experienced Warhammer players. We'll be following the meta, and you guys can see what it's like for people who are new to this game. I know it's a little bit, just from following things recently, it's, there's some people have issues with 10th and catering the game to new players, probably like us, but you guys can just kind of see what the perspective is like to new players like us.
It's actually very exciting for us coming from Star Wars Legion because I know this is sometimes a hot topic with the existing 40K player base, but the fact that 10th edition is supported so regularly, where they get updates, they get balance updates constantly, is so appealing to us because we came from Star Wars Legion, where you get a balance update once a year if you're lucky. And whatever you're playing, you might not get a new unit for a year. And you kind of have maybe only a handful of options. So you're kind of playing the same lists over and over. But with 10th edition and 40K in general, it seems like things move so quickly and things change constantly. So it's almost like you're playing a different game, like a new game throughout the year. You're not playing on the same rules. You're not playing on the same points. You're not playing on the same units. It's super appealing to us because sometimes Star Wars Legion felt stagnant.
Yeah, there's like an aspect of the meta building that interests both of us, I think, and in Star Wars Legion, that meta's been kind of stagnant for almost a year and a half now. So to us, when there's data slates coming out every quarter, basically, that's just like so appealing to us. But, those are just a few of the reasons. And I think as we get into the podcast, you'll just, as you see our perspective of the game, you'll just kind of learn more about why the game is appealing to new players, and hopefully for experienced players, older players, maybe players who haven't played in a while, it'll just reignite some sort of passion of the game for you to see that it is drawing in new players who want to play this game now, which is, for any game, you really want that for the health of the game. So I
Right.
think that's exciting. So I hope existing players, old players, I hope you find it exciting too.
And I hope you're accepting of us.
All right, so let's just jump into the topic. So we're new, so I think it only makes sense for us to start out with talking about what faction we chose and why we chose that faction. So, Brooke, do you want to go ahead and start off with what faction you're playing and why you chose them?
Yeah, so I like the Space Marines, which is probably not a big shock to many people who play 40K. There are the people who do and don't like Space Marines, and Space Marines usually attracts people. The new people attract it. They're initially attracted to Space Marines, and that was the case with me. I played them in Kill Team, but I really wanted to try branching out to some of their more unique units. So I ended up going into Space Wolves, which is maybe a little it might be a little controversial among some of the existing fans because I've heard that Space Wolves get a lot of hate. But they just kind of appeal to me for several reasons. I like their like history aspect where they have these members of the chapter that they tell their stories. They have these sagas that they tell, and they immortalize members of their chapter through these stories, and they remember their history, and they kind of prop up their history to aspire to better times, and I really like that about them. I also when I chose them, I was kind of simple in what I knew of the lore. In the wolf aspect, which gets memed on a lot, where everybody's like, everything's named Wolf, 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 Wolf. But I like dogs, so I was just naturally drawn to wolves. I saw Space Marines riding Thunder Wolves, and I was like, that's kind of cool. So I ended up going into them. Um, and then I also like that they are pretty human in the fact that they drink and they feast and they kind of have a good time together. And not all the chapters seem to do that. Like, if I don't know the lore super well, but it seems like some of the chapters, like maybe the Imperial Fists or I don't know, some of the other ones, they just don't seem like they have as good a time as the Space Wolves do. And maybe sometimes the Space Wolves have too good of a time, and people don't like that. And I think that's kind of cool. That makes them kind of unique. But
Do you think some of the hate is because of the Primarch of the Space Wolves?
probably, he kind of sucks, to be honest. From what I've learned of him in my short time being a 40K fan, he kind of sucks. That's like one of the bad things about them that I don't like. Like, I wish I had a Primarch like Vulcan or I even like Ferrus Manus, but like Lehman Russ sucks. He's the worst part of the faction in my opinion. I don't like him at all. He just I'm glad that he's gone because Logan is such a better chapter master than Russ was. Lehman Russ was such like an arrogant kind of an idiot. He just kind of led them to do some crazy stuff that otherwise a faction that kind of is honorable wouldn't do. And that's kind of what Logan Grimnar, he seems to represent that, like the honor side. And Bjorn does too. I like both of those guys. They the other part of them that I really like is that they were kind of situated among the chapters, among all the legions, as the emperor's executioners, quote unquote, where they would keep other primarchs in line. They would, you know, if somebody was stepping out of line, like we saw with Magnus in the lore, they would be the ones that the emperor would call to go and rein them in, which is cool. They're like the enforcers among the Space Marines, which there are some other like successor chapters that do that now, but they're so fearsome that they would go and kind of spank other Space Marines and be like, "You're not doing what the Emperor wants. The Emperor sent us to put you back in line," and I think that's kind of cool. Um, I I also, now that I'm learning more about, I've been reading the Horus Heresy books, and I'm learning more about the other chapters, the other legions, and they are effectively the loyalist version of the World Eaters, but they're like a tempered version of that. They have tempered rage. They act exactly the same in battle, where they just go berserk and they kill everything in sight, but they have this tempered rage where they know when to cut it off and they know when to rein it in. And I think that's really cool.
So you bring up
Um,
like the World Eater aspect of it. Does like the combat aspect of it appeal highly to you?
yeah, I like the berserk side. I like the charging in, the just beating back whatever stands in their way, just going crazy on the battlefield, and then they kind of rein it in and they tell really great stories and they have a drink over it, and that stuff is really cool to me. Um, but that's kind of what got me into the Space Wolves. I like their history, their characters, some of their characters, but I really don't like their Primarch. Um, but I think the Space Wolves are cool. I understand some of the hate that they get. I kind of don't understand some of the other hate that they get. We can kind of talk about that maybe then in a future episode about
Mm-hmm.
like a deep dive of them. Um, but yeah, that's why I got into them. I like the Space Wolves, and they're my first army. But Drew, why don't you tell us about your first army?
Yeah, so kind of as you alluded to in the intro when we were talking about like the kill team experience, my faction is going to be the orcs. Um, I'm still new to Warhammer, so I know a lot of orc players, you know, they scream wah and they use the orc words and stuff, and I'm very new to it, so don't crucify me for not saying like the gubbins and, you know, whatever. I'm still
Or
figuring it out
screaming.
as I go. Yeah, we don't play like we haven't played any games yet. We'll talk about that probably soon in our in a later part of the episode, but we're still in the collecting and mustering our army, but we're like mustering our army in like an actual sense. We're hobbying our army right now. But anyways, orcs really just appeal to me because and it's similar to your appeal with the space wolves. It's just the lore aspect of the orcs that I really like. I know a lot of it is has been like memed to hell and back as far as like it's not actually what the orc lore is, but people say that it's the orc lore. Like whatever the orcs think, for a piece of technology, it will do. But that's not really the true lore of the orcs. It's just that
Right.
the orcs were built with like a what is the word? They have an instinct, basically, a built-in instinct for building the technology that they need. And kind of what'll happen is if they want something to shoot more, they know how to build something that will shoot harder, and they just paint it yellow because that's what their
Right.
instincts tell them to do. Or they'll make a vehicle and it's meant to go really fast, and they know how to build a vehicle that goes really fast, and it they paint it red because
Yeah, like instinctually so.
yeah. So like a lot of people go, oh, if they paint it red, it goes fast because they think it should go fast. No, it's because the mech boys, who are building this stuff with the orcs, they know how to make something go fast. Like that's something that's very interesting in the lore is that like the Imperium who's studied orc technology doesn't understand how any of it works. None of it should work the way it's built, but it does.
Right.
And it works to it excels in the areas that the orcs want it to excel. The Imperium doesn't understand why, because the technology is so advanced, you could say. So
Yeah, it
that's
doesn't make any sense to them.
yeah. So I just think that's super interesting. That they're just like this species that'll get on a planet and it'll just like it'll take over the whole planet because they're like a spore basically. They'll just take over. Once one orc's on the planet, you're screwed. You're never gonna get them off the planet.
Right.
They're like the cockroaches of 40K. I know they're kind of like the lol cows of 40K, but I don't know. That doesn't bother me. And just kind of like the Space Wolves have sagas to tell stories. I kind of think that orcs they tell stories too, but they tell stories through the dice, and I think that's really cool. Where you can have like just a crazy cool game because the dice roll in your favor or they don't roll in your favor. So I like that aspect of it, and the quality through quantity aspect really um, appeals to me because we come from Star Wars Legion, and Legion does not have a very good way to model horde armies. You could say,
Right.
other than like adding more units and just like making them really weak. But I don't think orcs are done quite the same way. Like you have a true feel of a horde army where it's just like a massive green tide of orcs versus some space marines. I just think that's so cool, so thematic. So if you know like the three types of Magic the Gathering players that people talk about a lot, I'm very much like a Timmy crossed with a Johnny. So like I love to like put lists together and follow the meta, but I also I'll take a step back and look at the table and I just go like this looks so cool, with our two
Is
armies smashing into each other.
is Johnny the one that likes to do cool stuff?
Yeah, Johnny likes to build cool lists.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm kind of a Johnny mixed with a Spike. I like to. I'm fairly competitive, especially with like Star Wars Legion, but I like to do cool stuff, and we'll kind of see that a little bit later when we get into what we're building. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I like to build what I think is really cool, and then try to optimize it as best I can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, while we're talking about that, I don't have a whole lot more to say why I chose orcs. So, why don't you just start telling us like what units you've selected for your initial army composition, Just to give everybody a little more context, for our first game, me and Brooke are both targeting 1,000 point list. So we're gonna just kind of like work our way up to the standard 2,000 point list, and we're just starting small. Mostly for me because I'm collecting orcs and I have a family and I can't just like spend money building a 2,000 point orc army list. So I'm building it, you know, over time. So go ahead, Brooke, and tell us what units you're collecting currently and like what you're planning for your first 1,000 point list.
Yeah, and just a note, I have no problem with that either because hobbying takes a while for me. So starting with 1,000 points and learning the game, that is perfect. So for my list, I am just going to kind of start at the top, work my way down. First, I have Bjorn. I really like Bjorn, and I like Dreadnoughts. So I thought that was kind of an easy include, whether he is or not competitive. I don't really care because I think Bjorn is really cool. So I have Bjorn, and then I have Ragnar Blackmane. I just think his model is really cool. I think I really like when Space Marine, just normal Space Marines, get a special treatment of this guy is just such an awesome Space Marine that he now gets his own model, he gets his own weapon, he gets to lead units in a special way. I like that about Space Marines, that they can have these guys that excel, and Ragnar is one of those. And funny enough, I didn't know this until recently, but Ragnar has a pretty special relationship with orcs. I guess he had something to do with Gazgul, I think his name is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he
We're both
I think he
probably
cut up.
butchering the
I
name.
think I think he like spoiler, but like I think he cut off his head, but he didn't die. Like he was okay. I don't know how he was okay, but he cut off his head. I don't know, but
I mean, there's that one orc whose head was transplanted onto another body, so it's not surprising.
yeah. So it's kind of funny that I picked Ragnar, not really understanding that, but it's gonna kind of be lore accurate for us to be playing my Space Wolves into orcs when I have Ragnar. Anyways, I like Ragnar. Then I have a lieutenant with a storm shield and neo volkite pistol. Sorry. Um, I have a wolf lord on Thunderwolf. I have 5 intercessors, 6 man squad of blade guard vets. I have 3 eliminators. I have 6 Thunderwolf cavalry with storm shields and heirloom weapon, and then I have 5 Fenrisian wolves, and that puts me at 995. Um, I plan on running Ragnar and the Lieutenant in the Blade Guard vets, and then the Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf with the Thunderwolf Cavalry, and that'll kind of be my list where I have a block of very, very, very powerful foot slogging Blade Guard vets with Ragnar and the Lieutenant kind of leading that. And then I have this fast attack Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf with the Thunderwolf Cavalry. I really like the Thunderwolf Cavalry. Their models are fine, but the actual models having these giant wolves is really cool to me. So I wanted to include them. I wanted something that was Space Wolves themed before I kind of expanded into some of the other more general Space Marine stuff. And this is my initial list. I thought it was a wolf, a Space Wolf themed list, while being flexible enough to run a lot of the objectives that 10th edition requires you to, like with the Fenrisian Wolves. I have the Eliminators, I have the Intercessors. They're all kind of there to run objectives. They are flexible enough to run secondaries because I think the secondary rules are kind of cool where you draw new missions each turn. I think that's cool, and I wanted something to be flexible enough to do those things. But I like my list. I've reworked it probably 5 or 6 times. I think it's kind of cool. I really like my characters. It gives me the option to run the the Space Wolves detachment, the special detachment that makes them use sagas and stuff like that. I like that I could also go into some of the Space Marine specific detachments. So I have some options. It's kind of cool being a Space Marine player that you get all these options, which I know some people might not like because they don't have all those options yet. Um, but yeah, that's my first list. Drew, if you would like to tell us about your first 1,000 point list.
Yeah, but first, like Bjorn with that half damage, that's terrifying. And then the Thunderwolf Cavalry, I don't know what their exact stats are, but they look terrifying. And you're going to be running a full unit of them. I'm scared of them, but
Yeah.
that'll be fun whenever we're on table, smashing into each other. So all right, so my list is like my list is still in flight to be honest because I started collecting my list as an orc player. I got a lot to collect, but I started collecting my list back in I want to say like September last year. Excuse me. So it's been a while for me collecting, and as a Star Wars Legion player, I'm not used to data slates coming out every quarter that changes the points of my army. So like the initial
Right.
army I planned on collecting isn't even valid anymore. So I still have to tweak it a little bit. I have plenty of options that'll work, and I can add things to make it closer to 1,000 points, the enhancements or whatever. Um, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to play, but really, I followed some advice of a channel I was watching where they said, more or less like don't worry about the exact units that you're collecting as far as like following a meta in Warhammer 40K because the meta is going to change constantly. If you're constantly worrying about the meta, you're going to be in analysis paralysis and you're never going to collect anything. So he said basically collect what looks cool, collect like one of every unit, and when the meta changes, you'll have units to play into whatever the meta is. So just don't worry about it. So that's kind of the philosophy I've been following with building my orc army. Just kind of the rule of cool, collecting what I like, and
It's probably a good idea for most armies to collect what you like and go from there.
yeah, yeah. I want to find what his channel name is called so I can shout him out. Um, I'll look for it when you're talking, Brooke, and I'll shout it out. There's a
Okay.
few channels I've been following that have been like so helpful with collecting orcs, as far as like saying like this unit sucks, don't bother, or this one's a pain in the ass to build. Um, and I like hobbying, but I don't like it to be a chore. But all right, so let me get into what I have. So, uh, you know, I did collect orcs for playing green skins and 40k, so I do have a unit of boys, and I have some. I have a mix of ludas and burnas. I can't really use them though, because I think I have like two burnas and two ludas, so I don't think I can really build a worthwhile unit. Um,
Yeah, this is leftovers from Kill Team, right?
yeah. So really, I have a unit of boys. The next thing I bought was I went to a gaming store one day and I was like, I'm gonna collect orcs because I love orcs. I did get into Adeptus Mechanicus for a little while, but I was just like, those things are a pain in the ass to paint, and I'm not as passionate about them. But anyways, um, the next thing I bought were some war bikes because they're just sweet looking. I love the
They
bikes.
are cool.
hmm I bought some. I'm looking at my display case. You guys can't see it, but I got a display case right behind where I'm recording. I bought some Storm Boys, the guys with the jetpacks. I could be if I mess up any name. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're
I'm
new.
I'm new to the game. And then what else? Oh, the Squig Hog Boys. They're
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
Like they're riding little. They're like the Thunderwolf cavalry of the orcs.
Yeah, we could run our two cavalry units straight into each other and have just a mosh pit of mounted units crushing each other in the middle of the
Yeah,
board.
it's gonna be sweet looking. So I've been building those. Those were a ton of fun to paint. I just enjoyed it because I hadn't been hobbying orcs for a long time. I'd been doing Star Wars Legion. And let me tell you, painting orcs versus painting Republic in Star Wars Legion, it's like night and day. It's just like so much fun painting
It's like
orcs.
going from not fun to actually fun.
Yeah, having some like a little bit of creative options as far,
Agency.
yeah, agency when you're painting instead of just like these are clones, they wear white armor. I could put stripes on them for some color, or I could do camo and hate my life.
And then you'll have the player who'll go up to you and say, "Well, the 501st, they wouldn't run side by side with the 212th," and then you just
Then I
pick
just
up your army and go to a
punch them in
different
the
table.
face. So yeah, I've just been enjoying painting those. After that, the next thing I bought was the boarding patrol for orcs because why not? I found one online that was like being sold secondhand at a really reasonable price, and that comes with the commandos. It comes with the Beast Snagaboys, which I wanted to collect anyways, just because I have the Squighog boys, and it goes with them, and they're like boys but badass. So why wouldn't I want that? And then it comes with flash kits, which I'll get into that later. And what else does it come with? Am I
The
missing
Beast
anything?
Snaga boys are sick looking, actually.
Yeah,
I always forget what they look like. They look really cool.
yeah. My Beast Snaga boys, I'm so happy with how they turned out. They're just so cool. Oh, it comes with Boss Snickrot, which is just he's really cool. He goes perfectly with the commandos. I'm really excited to have the commandos. I haven't painted them yet. Of all of the units I have that are pretty useful, I haven't painted them yet, but I really want to be able to play them in Kill Team if I
Yeah.
continue playing that. So I'm happy to have the commandos. Boss Snickrot, he's sweet with his little precision skill, with his, I don't know what they're called, Mork's Fang or some shit like that. I don't remember. Um, Anyways, continuing. This isn't 1,000 points yet, as you know if you're an orc player. Next, I bought some
Okay, so is
Gretchen.
this all your list still?
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay,
This
go
is
on.
why I started collecting a long time ago. I bought some Gretchen because everybody's like, Gretchen are awesome. They can generate you a CP just for standing on an objective and looting it. That's pretty cool. I bought a Beast Boss because I needed somebody to lead my Beast Snagaboys, and the Beast Boss is cool. I love my Beast Boss. After that, I bought a truck because that's kind of the meta right now. You stick a bunch of orcs into a transport and you just roll them forward, which I think is really cool. Just like the truck looks like a piece of crap, and I just imagine it like rumbling down the battlefield with like bouncing through like craters and stuff with Beast Snagaboys in the back. It's cool.
By the way, Beast Boss is a really cool model too. He is really, really cool. I
Yeah.
really like the Beast Naga Boys, Beast Boss. They are really cool. Some of the coolest orc models out there.
It's funny because they're very hated and they're the newer models of the orcs, but I don't know. I love them. They're really cool.
I mean, it
And
looks better than the boys that are just squatting. They look like they're about to take a dump in the woods, you know? It's like,
the boys'
look at
models are
it.
old. And I mean, the boys' models that I have are old, but then there's the monopose ones that people always talk about that they really
Oh,
hate
yeah.
on. I don't have
Are
any of
those the
those.
newer ones?
Yeah, I mean, the Beast Snagas, they're basically monopause. You'd have to do some like kit bashing to like get them to look how you want. But I like them. I don't own any of them before I bought these ones, and they're awesome. I love them. After that, I bought the big boy. I bought Mazrog, not Gazgul. Sorry. For any other orc players out there who are a Gaz fan, I really like Mazrog. Just him sitting on that giant squig and his like
Yeah.
half cyborg body. He's so cool looking. And I just finished painting him maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm so happy with how he turned out. it was so awesome painting him. I really love him.
Now, does he lead your Squig Hog boys?
No, he basically solos. Imagine him like does
Okay.
Bjorn does Bjorn go in a squad?
No, he's in a dreadnought. He doesn't lead anything.
Yeah, imagine a Bjorn, but it's a big ass orc on a big ass squig.
Yeah. Well, when we play, it'll probably be Bjorn and Mazrog in the middle of the battle, just going at it. If they even survive that long, they'll probably
Yeah.
both be targeted.
So like that was my list, and then we got points updates, and my
So
list doesn't work anymore.
so just like a recap of what your list was, and then what it is now. I think
So
that would probably be helpful.
so it was boys, beast snagaboys were my battle line. I would have Gretchen, Storm Boys, and I'm looking back at my cabinet. And Flashgits as my infantry. And then would have a truck as my dedicated transport. I would have a beast boss. I would have the knob on, what is it, Squigosaur or whatever, the leader of the Squig Hog Boys. My
Oh,
mounted
right.
would be the Squig Hog Boys and the war bikes. And I would have Mazrog as my warlord. That worked like 2 data slates ago. Now it
Oh, I
doesn't
didn't
work.
realize. I didn't realize you're gonna do war bikes and the Squig Hog boys.
Yeah,
That would have been pretty wild.
it would have been. It would have been so cool. And then the meta changed, and orcs. This everybody was taking Snaga stuff, and they bumped the points up. They got a nerf. So I've been buying some other stuff since then. So since then, I've bought some Mega Knobs. I've been wanting to buy Mega Knobs just because I think they're cool. I like the fact that you can have like mech to what I don't know what he's called, a mech and mega armor, I think is what he is. You can have a
Right.
mech and mega armor, and he can resurrect mechs or Mega Knobs. Like that's cool. They're just cool looking, and the different attachments you can have for the weapons. So I've been collecting them. I
Yeah,
don't
like the
think.
Mega Knobs are basically like the Terminator version of orcs, right?
Yeah, sorta. You could look at them that way. It's just like a knob in power armor, basically. So
Yeah.
you could say it basically. Yeah, it's like a Terminator. Um, I've bought 2 boxes of knobs, so I have 10 knobs total that I can run. And I also bought a battle wagon because the battle wagon got really cheap, and then it got cheap in points, and I was like, okay, this is just telling me to buy a battle wagon. So I bought a battle wagon because it's cool looking and it's affordable now to run. So I think I got a pretty good mishmash of like units to run a 1,000 point list. I'm still kind of figuring it out. I really need a war boss, and obviously there's not like a dedicated war boss model for orcs, so I'm figuring out how I'm going to do that. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited for what I have, and I'm I think like the Johnny side of me is excited because I have options. I don't have to run the same thing. I can build several different lists and not have to run the same thing back to back in games. So I'm really
Right.
excited.
Just to recap, let's go through our list one more time, and just so that we have them back to back, and people can kind of hear them and maybe compare them against each other.
Mm-hmm. You want me to go
So
first?
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So kind of what I'm thinking probably to start is going to be um, my Beast Snaga boys will be my battle line, led by a Beast boss, and I'm gonna have Storm boys for sure. Gretchen, a truck, probably with the Beast Snaga boys in it. I'm gonna have Mazrag because he's just a badass, and I love the paint job that I did to him. I'm going to have war bikes or the Beast Snaga boys. I don't think I can necessarily afford both of them in the same army anymore. I'll have Gretchen. I don't know if I already said them. I really want to try to run the 10 knobs unit because I really like them. And the battle wagon. and a war boss. I really need a war boss. I don't own one yet, but I have plans to get one. So maybe I'll talk about those plans later. But
Is that the one that they say that you should kit bash?
yes.
Yeah.
All right. So
Well,
what are you running, Brooke?
yeah, so my list, just to recap, is Bjorn, Ragnar, a lieutenant with Storm Shield, Neo Volkite pistol. That's a mouthful. Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf. 5 intercessors, 6 Blade Guard vets, 3 eliminators, 6 Thunderwolf cavalry with storm shields and heirloom weapons, and 5 Fenrisian wolves, which sounds like a lot less than what you are bringing to the table because my stuff costs a lot and yours doesn't. It feels like I'm going to be outnumbered completely on the table.
Seeing as an orc player, I'm like, man, that's a lot of units I'm gonna have to kill with my t-shirt saved, t-shirt save unit. So I think it'll be fun either way. I just really like how my units are looking, and I'm excited to see them on a table.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I I think it's going to be fun to learn the game with the list that we have because we are going to certainly clash in the middle with my cavalry and my blade guard, and then you bringing either your squig boys and your bikes, or your not your truck, but your
Battle wagon.
battle wagon. Yeah, full of your beast naga boys. That's gonna be crazy. They're gonna be right in my face and immediately, and I'm gonna have to deal with them, and that's terrifying to me. So
Yeah, I think it's
that's gonna be wild.
good that neither one of us is running like a super shooty army or like a meta shooty army or something where we're just shooting one of, you know, I'm shooting your army off the board or vice versa before we even
Yeah,
get in the face of the other one. So I think it'll be
it's probably
fun.
it's probably good I'm starting with Space Wolves because my other army that I am interested in is Tau, and if we did Tau versus Orcs, I feel like that would not be very fun.
It has the potential. Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. It Who knows? It just seems like the game is very balanced right now, so it could be fun. Who knows? So let's move on to the next topic. So how's prepping and hobbying your army been going for you, Brooke?
So it's been okay. My army is taking a while, because I'm going for a certain look. I'm going for a clean look with my Space Wolves. It might have been a mistake because it takes a while to get a clean look. I spent a lot of time highlighting. I spent a lot of time getting the panel lining. I spent a lot of time getting their shoulder pads right. I spent a lot of time getting all their different pouches and all that garbage painted, and it just kind of blends into each other because they're all space marines. So they all have space marine armor, and then they I have to paint all the space marine armor in the Space Wolves gray, and then I luckily have a break where I can paint Bjorn and the wolves completely different than everything else. Although I think the Blade Guard vets are pretty cool. That's what I'm working on right now. The Blade Guard vets just have so much going on their models between their shields and their like special patch that they have on their chest, and then they have like a bunch of different things that they have around their waist, and they have all these things hanging off their neck, and it's just like they have a ton of stuff going on. They have really elaborate looking armor. They're a really cool unit. They have a ton going on. Same with Ragnar. Ragnar has a ton going on. I am saving Bjorn for last because I think Bjorn is going to be so much fun to paint. I'm really looking forward to painting Bjorn. But right now, I don't have much painted, to be honest. But that's going to change here in the next few weeks because we're planning on playing a game in 2 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be working my butt off to get to that point where I can play that first game. Luckily, I don't have as many models to paint. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 13, 19. I have 24 models to paint.
That's it.
Uh, it's not that much if you consider that. Uh, if you consider, so my Blade Guard vets are in process, and I think they're probably the most complicated part. But if I look at like my Thunderwolf Cavalry, and then my friend Rizian Wolves, they're going to be super easy because they have fur and they obviously have to paint Space Marines that are riding the Thunderwolf Cavalry and their shields and all that stuff. But they're not going to be that hard because I don't plan on spending a ton of time on the wool on the Space Marines that are riding the wolves. And I think the wolves are going to be pretty easy because I feel like I can do some pretty fast techniques to like contrast paints, slap chop, whatever to get their fur looking good, and that won't take very long. I think that where the most of my time is going to be is what I'm doing right now, which is the Blade Guard vets, the Lieutenant and Ragnar, which are all in progress. I guess I misspoke earlier, but Ragnar and Lieutenant are also in that batch. So I'm kind of batch painting those 8 models. And then I have the Intercessors done, and then I have the Eliminators built, and then I'm building the Thunderwolves when I need to take a break from painting. For me personally, just like insight on my hobby time, I don't necessarily like building. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to painting, and it takes me a little bit to figure out my painting process, which is what I'm doing right now. It's taken me a while. I actually did the Hounds of Mordecai, which is the Reaver squad, the special Reaver squad for Space Wolves. They're like anti-psyker. They're pretty cool. But they were my first Space Wolves unit that I painted, and I tried some things on them, and then I did my Intercessor squad, and I did some other things to kind of perfect the process that I was going for, and I think I got most of the way there. And then now that I'm doing the Lieutenant, Ragnar, and the Blade Guard vets, this is what process I'm going to use for all of my Space Marines in this army. This is now I'm at the point where I'm trying to perfect that process. I do love the way my models look when they're done. My intercessors are one of my favorite models I've ever painted. They are very clean. They look exactly how I want them to look, almost to a T. They are really, really nice. And I hope I can accomplish that with the other ones. I don't want it to keep me from finishing them. I really want to get these done so that we can play. Um, I just think that the Blade Guard vets and the Lieutenant and Ragnar are going to take a while because they have just so much detail. And while Space Marines are kind of fast to paint, probably majority of the time, where you just paint like a generic intercessor or a tactical marine or whatever. Tactical marines are kind of out because of legends or whatever. But if you're painting just a normal marine, they're pretty quick. But when you add a shield that has a ton of stuff on it, and then you have they all have power swords, they all have dangly bits on their, hanging off of them. Like, you add all that, and it increases the time tenfold. I am enjoying the process. I use a lot of airbrush, but the look that I'm going for is really nice, and I'm looking forward to getting this done before we plan on playing. To see all of these guys on the table is going to be so cool. It's going to be so cool to actually see 1,000 points of Space Wolves and Orcs on the same table. It's going to be so cool. I've had these models for so long. I bought these models during 9th edition. It was probably, oh man, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when I first bought models. And I bought them randomly. I was at a store, a local store, and I was with one of my other friends, and we were just looking at models, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to buy, and I saw some Space Wolf stuff, and I bought Thunderwolf Cavalry because I thought they were just so cool. And I've been sitting on them for so long. It's going to be so nice to actually get them on the table finally. But I'm looking forward to that. It's going well. I really have figured out some certain techniques, like getting their transfers on their shoulders correctly and smoothly. I I like that I have a ninth edition Space Wolves Codex just so I can reference their shoulder emblems that they put on their shoulders, like on their, not the one that you put the transfer on, but the markings you have to make to be like, this guy is an intercessor and he belongs to this thing. And then you have a guy that is an assault intercessor and his shoulder pad is a different color and has a different marking on it because he is a special guy that just runs forward and he's like an assault trooper, so he gets a special shoulder pad. And I'm so glad I have that because now I can paint all my guys with the proper, I guess, lore accurate shoulder pads, which is kind of important to me. I like to be, lore accurate, um, because I really, really, really like the lore. But having that stuff makes it easy to reference, and then I can be like, oh, well, now my intercessors, they have red shoulder pads and they have these black spikes on them. And then, oh, here's my Hounds of Mordecai and they have this thing. And then I can look at Bjorn the Fell-Handed in the book and be like, oh, they painted him like this. I should probably do something similar and paint him like that. I guess that's one of the tropes of like going into a Space Marine army is some people feel like they're forced to paint exactly what chapter they're painting and they feel kind of like railroaded into it. And I don't. I just do it because I want to. And I would encourage anybody that is hobbying to never just feel railroaded and just do whatever you want. If you want to paint your space marines whatever color you want, paint them whatever color you want. Don't worry about that. I just really like Space Wolves, so I'm going lore accurate. I'm going for a clean look. I want them to be fresh, ready to go. I don't know what base I'm going to go with, but I kind of want to go with a wintry base. My guys that I have painted right now don't have any base done for them, but I kind of want to go with that winter base to kind of really lean into the Wolves of Fenris kind of look. But it's going well. I expect to get them done in 2 weeks. It's gonna be a grind, but that's okay. I have the time to do it. It shouldn't be that many models. I have a ton of experience painting Star Wars Legion and Kill Team, and I feel like I should be able to get it done. So that's the goal. But that is my hobbying. Drew, if you want to tell us about your hobbying, you've gotten a lot more done than I have in regards to 40K. Tell us about your experience with orcs.
Yeah, I feel like I talked a decent amount about them while I was just kind of like talking about what I've been collecting. But right now, just for some context, well, most of my army is painted except for my knobs, my mega knobs, my commandos, and boss Snickrot. I'm still finishing up my battle wagon, but it's so close to being done. I've been magnetizing it, so it's just taking a little bit longer to make sure I get everything glued together where it needs to go, so it's easy to make modular or whatever. Just a note about my army, like the Evil Sons aspect really appeals to me. I love like Mad Max is one of my favorite movies, so I just love like the vehicles and stuff. So the Evil Sons really appealed to me as well. Just like go fast, have crazy vehicles and stuff like that. So all of my
Orc
guys,
vehicles are awesome.
yeah, the orc vehicles are like so cool. They're just like they look like they'd belong in the Mad Max universe. So it's just
Right.
so cool. It's perfect for what I love. So my Beast Snagga guys, they might not make like 1,000% sense considering they're supposed to be the orc rednecks or whatever, but whatever. They're Beast Snaggas now, or I mean they're Evil Sons now. So that's what everything's been painted as. One thing I want to say, so like of all the units I've completed so far, the flash kits sucked. I hated painting the flash kits. I painted only 5 of them. I know that they're like having a unit of 10 is pretty good. Having Captain Badruck is pretty good. And sticking them in a truck, great. I don't want to do it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it because I freaking hate painting them. So,
Yeah, like how long did it take you to finish your squad of 5?
it's it was sort of like writer's block for me. It was like
Yeah.
I had been just flying through my orcs, hobbying them, and I got to the flash gets, and I was just stuck on them for like a month and a half because I hated painting them so much. Their guns are so big that they're holding, and they got so many little bits all over their body and on their
Yeah.
back. I just like, this sucks. And I actually bought a. I used to just use like a regular painting palette for everything I've ever done because I'm usually not using that much paint, so it's not a big deal. I bought a wet palette because of the flash kits because they suck so much to paint and you're switching between paints so much because there's so much crap on them that you're like, I forgot to paint that, I forgot to paint that, and you're constantly switching between paints. And I'd see a part I missed to paint, and I'd go into my paint palette, and it would be dried out, and I'm like, God damn it, I gotta pour more paint. It just felt so wasteful after a while. Anyways, flash kits suck to paint. If I was doing it again, I don't know how I could make it better, to be honest. I don't know if there's any way other than just being happy with mediocrity. So, flash kits suck. If you're new to the game, I don't know. If you know a good way to paint flash kits that still look good, let me know because I hated it. My favorite unit to paint was Mazar. He was just so much fun. I was following some other. I think it was Midwinter Minis did a
Yeah.
model. They entered it into the Golden Demon, and I was really kind of looking at that one for inspiration. It's not the exact copy. He's got some of my own style / this is the color I have available in my collection of paint, so he doesn't look exactly like it, but I'm so happy with how he turned out. He's awesome. He's going to look so cool as the warlord of my army. But yeah, right now I'm painting my knobs. I've painted their skin. I've painted the leather bits of them, and they're coming along great, and they're looking cool. I've heard people complain about their models that they're looking old, but I don't know. I really like them. It was fun because they reminded me a lot of when I first painted my first unit of boys when I was really starting to get into wargaming a while ago. So they've been a lot of fun to paint. It is a lot of work collecting orcs. There's a lot to paint, period. But I'm pretty proud of myself because I don't have like a large pile of shame. I've been pretty good at pacing myself out and not like going a little too crazy on what I'm collecting. So it's been a lot of fun.
I've done the opposite of that. We'll get there, but I'm not that. I'm completely the opposite.
Well, you're actively addressing your pile of shame. So I think by having the goal of playing 10th edition, you're getting rid of some of that backlog at least.
It's good that we have the goal. And I hope that when we do play, we can take some pictures of some of our models that we're happy about and that we're proud of, and maybe we can share them maybe to, I don't know, maybe to a link in the description or maybe X or something. I don't know. But
well, I mean, we
can
could
maybe
even
share some.
do a video, and we could bring it up in OBS and show everybody our favorite models. We probably should have done it for this episode, but maybe.
Well, I don't have hardly anything done, so
I don't want to spoil a later part we're going to talk about. But maybe when we play our first game, we can take some pictures of our units on table so people can see what we're running. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, and I think this will be a pretty short topic, but I'm curious for you with Space Wolves, what units do you want to add next? And just give me like 3 units that interest you that you would really like to buy next, either from like the meta perspective or, if it's the Timmy perspective of just like, this unit's cool, I just really want to collect it. So like, what units do you want to collect? Why do you want to collect them?
So I am gonna swerve a little bit. I'm probably not gonna buy anything new. I have a bunch of stuff in my backlog, and buying something is a bad idea because I have so much already. However, talking about what I want to add, I really like dreadnoughts in Space Marine armies, and I feel like Space Wolves are kind of special with their dreadnoughts. Apart from maybe like an Iron Hands player who gets benefits from running vehicles and stuff, but running the dreadnought side of the army, we get Wolfen dreads, which are really cool. They are unique to Space Wolves. But what I want to lean into, I want to lean into some more dreadnoughts. I really like the Redemptor dreadnought. It's obviously very good, and I'm sure some people in the community might roll their eyes when I say Redemptor dreadnought because it's like the best dreadnought. I also like the Ballistus dreadnought, which just came out with the Leviathan box. And then I also have another box of the Venerable Dreadnought, which is the Space Wolf specific Dreadnought, and I want to build Murderfang as well. And I would like to have Bjorn and Murderfang in the same list. I think that would be sweet. I think they're both really cool units. Um, uh, the other thing that I would like to try to find a way to run is the Invictor Warsuit with the Hounds of Mordkai, because the Invictor Warsuit has an ability that I just think is really cool. I don't know. It's probably not even that good, but I think it's really cool that if the Invictor Warsuit is close enough to the Hounds of Mordkai or any other Phobos armored unit, so it could be infiltrators and cursors or whatever. If it's close enough to a Phobos unit and the Phobos unit gets shot, the Invictor Warsuit can shoot back. It just gets a reaction to shoot whatever shoots at the Hounds of Mordkai or whatever Phobos unit you decide to run. So I kind of want to run them in tandem because I already have the Hounds of Mordkai done, and I kind of want them to run together. They could go and take a point together, where the Hounds of Mordkai hold the point, and the Victor Warsuit just kind of backs them up and makes it so that they're an impossible option to shoot because you know that the Invictor Warsuit is going to shoot back at them. I like Obviously, I like the Dreadnoughts, so the Invictor Warsuit makes sense, and I already have the Hounds of Mordkai. The other ones that I'll just hit high level, I like the Terminators. I bought the Leviathan box, or the Space Marine side of the Leviathan box, so I have the Terminators from there. I really like them. I like the Repulsor to maybe get my Blade Guard vets in quicker, and maybe another unit that I'm about to mention, which is the Assault Intercessors. I bought the Indomitus box back in 9th edition. This is how far back I started buying into Space Marines. So the 10 Assault Intercessors that came in that box would be awesome to just throw into a Repulsor and just shove it in front of my opponent's face and say, deal with 10 Assault Intercessors and a tank and have fun with that. I think that would be really cool. And then the last unit is the Eradicators. I just think they're a really cool unit. They're really good in the meta. That's kind of the spike side of me talking. They're an anti-tank unit. They have huge melta guns. They have multi-meltas. And they're really chonky boys. They have Gravis armor. They're really cool. I like Gravis armor. So it might actually lead me into getting more Gravis stuff. But that's kind of a high level. I like the Dreadnoughts, the Warsuit, and then some of the new stuff that came in the Leviathan box. So, Drew, with your next units that you want to add, I know you've built a ton of stuff and you've painted most of it. Are there any units that you're looking to add in future games, maybe that you already have painted, and maybe some that you would like to buy in maybe some of these new boxes that were just announced? I don't know, but tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick 3 units that I really want to collect next. So, and I think so. Before I continue, I do want to shout out the 2 channels that have been helping me out because they really helped me with getting off of the analysis paralysis of like, what do I want to collect next, and just being okay with having like a Highlander army where like I don't have a skew or anything. But anyways, the first one is Wa Tactics. Those guys are pretty cool. They're small channels, so if you're an orc player just getting into it, check out Wa Tactics. They're pretty cool. They helped those were the ones who really gave, I think, really great advice of just like, don't worry about what the meta is right now because the meta is going to change. Just start collecting stuff that you think is cool. And once you have enough units of like throughout the orc collection, you'll be able to address whatever the meta is. So don't worry about what the meta is and just play what's fun. So Wa Tactics, check those guys out. And then the other guy that's been helping me also is Happy Crump and Wargaming. He's more
It's a great
competitive.
game.
Yeah, he's more competitive side than I am. But I've enjoyed watching it just because it's helped me learn like how the game works and how to run an orc army. So like I want to have fun with an orc army, and even though I'm probably more Johnny and Timmy skewed, I don't want to get stomped either. I want to be able to like I want my units to stay on the table so I can enjoy them being on the table. So he's been helping me out just as far as learning tactics with orcs. Anyways, so continuing, 3 models I want to run. I have an Evil Sun's army, and if we're looking at Evil Suns, all I have really that is truly Evil Suns, you could say, are like Storm Boys, War Bikes, Truck, Battle Wagons. So I really want to have more vehicles, and they probably won't necessarily fit into my 1,000 point list, but once we start expanding to like we're going to do 1250 for a game, or we're going to do 1500 as we continue to increase whatever our point quota is. I really want to have more like buggies. So those are probably the next things I'm going to target to collecting. I really want to def kill a war trike because it's just awesome looking. It's a leader for my war bikes. So he's just really cool, and just like he's really good, and then embedding him in a unit of war bikes to just make him even more survivable. You got to kill all these war bikes before you can even hurt my def kill a war trike. Pretty cool. Next unit I really like that, and the next 2 units I don't think they're really good in meta, but I just think they're really cool. First one is the Shock Jump Dragster. It's a dragster with a giant sniper rifle on it. So, like, what's not to like about that? And then it also has some sort of, like, mech boy technology that lets it warp around the battlefield. So, that's so cool to me.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And with it being a sniper rifle, it has precision. So, you can target individual units within an enemy unit. So, if you're trying to hide your lieutenant or whatever in your
or Ragnar.
Yeah, or Ragnar in a unit, I can just pick them out with a shock jump dragster. So that's pretty cool. But probably the even larger value of the shock jump dragster, because it's an orc shooting thing, so it's not great.
Yeah.
It does have the ability to warp around the battlefield, which makes it really good for secondaries. So it's just a really cool unit. I really like that aspect of it. It has really cool mechanics in the game. And then the other one that I really like is the Squig Buggy, I think is what it's called. Let me double check that.
Buggy?
Squig Buggy.
Squig Buggy.
Yes.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah.
Is it just like a little buggy?
Yeah, it's the Rucka Truck Squig Buggy.
Oh, that's cool. It's cute.
Yeah, I really like it. And he's like, I guess, chucking like squigs.
Yeah, he's got a squig in his hand. He's ready to throw it. This looks straight out of Mad Max. I can see why you like it. It's cool.
Yeah, it has razor blades out the side and spikes on the front. Like, it's cool. It fits with my Beast Snaga boys. They're riding, big squigs. Or the Squig boys.
There's squigs in a cannon, like ready to shoot out of it. That's great. That's such a cool model.
Yeah, like if you look at the above view, there's just like a pile of squigs in the back too for like more ammunition.
That's a cool model. I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah, so like the buggies, they're so cool. Everybody says they suck right now. Watt Tactics, those guys in particular, I think they put them in the like B category, which you could run them in a list, but they're not great. But I want to run them in a list because they're cool, and I'm probably not going to be running in tournaments anytime soon, especially being a new player. Maybe they'll be good by the time I ever have the courage to do a tournament. But they have, speaking of like actual in-game tactics. They have indirect, and they're also anti-infantry, I think, which is, there's not a ton of like indirect in orc lists, so having something like that available to use is pretty cool.
Yeah, that seems good.
Yeah, especially if you're like trying to back cap an objective or something. But of course, a lot of, I don't. Do you have sticky with Space Wolves?
Yeah, my intercessors have sticky objectives, which is literally the only reason that they're in the list is so that I
Okay.
can capture more stuff easier.
Yeah, I guess if I was going against something that didn't have sticky, that had a, like my Gretchen, they're a perfect unit for back capping something, holding my home objective. Uh, Something like the squig buggy is perfect for just chucking a bomb on them and just saying like, you are gonna die, even though I can't see you. You need to die now. So, not that he will
Yeah,
kill them, but it's the thought that counts.
indirect seems really good in 10th edition. At least it was initially. It might not be as good as it was, but
No, it's
having
good.
some indirect.
It's a little broken, is what I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, indirect seems pretty good in any list if you can get a little of it. I know there's certain ways I can get it in Space Marines. I don't know if I have any right now, but yeah, indirect seems good. And having that on a buggy that you're going to be zooming around the map is that's cool.
Yeah, so that's basically where I'm gonna start skewing towards once I have like my base collection is expanding on like what is an Evil Sons list, because I don't feel like, other than being red, I don't feel like I have a true Evil Sons list. So I want to expand on that and just like feel like I'm running true Evil Sons. And when the Codex comes out and there's a speed war or whatever, I will be ready for it. That's what I want.
Nice. That sounds cool. I like the buggy and vehicle leaning into that for you. I like the orc vehicles a lot.
Yeah, I just want this like Mad Max vehicle armada just on the battlefield, and if they explode or whatever, then they're gonna look good while they do it.
I feel like we're gonna have some crazy clashes if I lean into dreadnoughts then, because it'll be orc vehicles against space marine dreadnoughts just clashing over objectives. It's gonna be pretty wild. Mad Max basically on the tabletop between our two armies.
I still want to have like Beast Snaga stuff too, because I'm just like, why wouldn't Squighog Boys be run with the Evil Sons? Like, they want to find a Squighog that is as fast as possible, maybe.
Yeah,
So,
they want to run really fast.
and they got some of that anti-vehicle potential in them. That
Yeah.
it will have a pretty big clash with your dreadnoughts and my vehicles and my Beast Snaga stuff that's anti-vehicle. It'll be sweet.
Yeah, it should be a good time. Speaking of when we're going to play our very first game, do you want to tell the people where we're trying to do that?
Yeah, so you kind of alluded to it. If anybody is very much embedded in just kind of like the competitive community or whatever, you mentioned that we're going to be doing something 2 weeks from now. I don't know if we're going to release this video right away or not, but 2 weeks from now, me and Brooke are going to be traveling to Chicago for Adepticon. So we kind of made this plan a long time ago. Is basically as soon as I started collecting orcs, I talked to Brooke and I was like, "Hey, I'm collecting orcs. I want to play Warhammer 10th edition. Do you want to collect an army and play with me?" And Brooke agreed
And
to it.
I was like, I already have an army.
Yeah,
I'm ready to go.
other than painting. So
Yeah.
So basically, we wanted to try to play before Adepticon, but just, life happens and you don't always have time to get it done before then. But we've basically set like a drop dead goal of we are going to play our first game at Adepticon. We're not playing in a tournament or anything like that. We're just going to find an open table at Adepticon and figure out how to play Warhammer 10th edition. It doesn't seem like there's better place to do it, to be honest. So I'm
Yeah,
really excited.
I think it's going to be very memorable to have our first game at Adepticon, which is basically the War Gamers convention. And the fact that we're going to learn 10th edition there is kind of cool. It's going to be a pretty memorable experience in Chicago. It's going to be fun. And and the other thing that I also want to point out, just having the goal of this is when we want to play our first game, and we put it out there months ago. It's probably November, or even when you started first collecting, maybe it was even October. I mean, it was so long ago that we're like, we want to do this for Adepticon. And having that deadline to push us to get these done, and I understand that I'm behind, which is funny that I'm the one talking about this right now, but having a goal that we're going to adhere to get our armies done and get them ready for the tabletop is such a good tool for anybody that's trying to get an army done. Set a date out in the future and say, I want to get my game in on this day with this person. We're accepting, hey, we're gonna sit down at this date and play a game, and we're gonna learn it, and we've both kind of agreed upon this, and it will keep you accountable. It will push you to get it done because you don't want to let the other person down because you know that they're also getting their army done, and you want to get your army done so that you guys can have that game together. And having that realistic goal, an attainable goal to get your army done is such a useful tool. And for us, that's Adepticon, and I think it's going to be really cool to play our first game there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely the aspect of not letting down your opponent is big, and then also the fact that you get 10 points for having a fully painted army, so that's some motivation there.
Right. They
Uh,
build it into the game.
exactly. So, we're if anyone sees us at Adepticon struggling at a table, um, feel free to tell us what we're doing wrong, but we're going to be figuring it out as we go. And whenever we play our first game, we're probably going to do it kind of as the like later in the day as the main convention hall's
After the
closing.
tournament's done.
Yeah, and just kind of like take our time doing it because it's going to take us a long time to run through our first game, I think. But I think it's going to be so much fun, especially with the fact that I've been working on my army for 6 months plus, and it's just like to have them on table is going to feel so good.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
yeah,
such an accomplishment. It's a cool goal to finally meet and to sit down and play. And for people that are maybe nervous about playing their first game at a convention like that, our first year going to Adepticon was last year, and we played Star Wars Legion there, and we had an amazing time playing at Adepticon. It was so much fun.
mm-hmm.
And watching the people who actually knew what they were doing play Star Wars Legion, and we kind of picked a few things up from how they were playing. So much fun. So if you're a beginner and you are maybe curious about a convention, or maybe you feel intimidated to go there as a new player and try to play the game that you have been working on for a while, I would actually encourage you to go and just participate in that environment of playing on tournament tables if they let you, which the Star Wars Legion people did, and we kind of hope that the 40K people do as well. But the fact that you can go there, play on tables at the convention, the same tables that the tournament is being played on, is so much fun. And don't feel intimidated because people are super welcoming to the new people who show up and want to play on the tournament tables. They were last year, and we assume that it's going to be just the same this year. It's so much fun. If you see us there and you see somebody, two guys at a table, and one of them's playing Space Wolves and one of them's playing Orcs,
And they
you
look
know
like
who
they
it
don't know
is.
what the hell they're doing.
And we keep referencing our phones. Yeah, it's probably us, so we have no idea what we're doing, and we're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be a blast.
And
So,
Adepticon, honestly, it's just like if you're very embedded into whatever game you play, whether it's Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Armada, Marvel Crisis Protocol, Warhammer, any of the
right,
Warhammer games, like it's like the superstar event for your game in the United States at least. So it's awesome. It's worth checking out if you live close, or if you don't live close, go to it. It's really cool. And
and
What?
And they have the hobby side of it too. They have the Golden Demon competition at Adepticon. So if you just do hobbying, it's worth going to check that side of it out too, because you can see the people that you might follow on YouTube, or maybe you follow them on Instagram or whatever, like these pro painters that are submitting these pieces of art to the Golden Demon. You can actually see those in person, and it's so cool. It'll give you lots of inspiration for your own models. Oftentimes, they are so popular. Like last year, we went by the Golden Demon area, and we weren't into 40K hobbying at the time. We play a little kill team, but we weren't into the 40K side, which is, if you don't know, Golden Demon is all Games Workshop stuff. So we weren't super into the hobbying side of that, so we didn't check it out too much. But that whole exhibit of all the Golden Demon stuff was surrounded by people constantly, just looking at the entries. It is so cool. We walked by and saw a few things, and they were really, really, really impressive. If you like the hobby, if you like gaming, both things are going to be something that you can participate in at Adepticon. It is not just for gaming. It is not just for hobby. It's both. We we took many breaks between watching people play Star Wars Legion last year to go and just hobby, and that was one of my favorite parts of Adepticon. Is that there was tons of space to just go and set up a little hobby station and start painting, and we painted some Star Wars Legion stuff last year, and we kind of expect to do the same thing with our armies. We're going to bring some units that we're in the middle of painting, and we're going to work on them at Adepticon, and it's part of the fun. You get to be with a bunch of people who are like-minded, who are all working towards a goal of playing a game, or they want to, paint something that they're proud of, and you get to be in that same atmosphere with those people who all enjoy those things and paint those things together or play the games together, and it's just a ton of fun. Totally recommend it. It is so much fun. We just went 1 year last year, but I can tell you it's the best convention I've ever attended, and it's totally worth it as a player and a hobbyist.
And last year we went totally casual. We went just to observe some of our favorite games. And this year we are going to play in a casual tournament, which is kind of us just dipping our toes into playing more competitive, but obviously it's casual. But we are going to be playing a casual 2v2 Star Wars Legion tournament, so that's going to be a ton of fun for us to try that out. And this year we're going to be going for that, and then casual Warhammer to do our first game. So hey, maybe next year we'll be dipping our toes into playing a 2v2 casual tournament for Warhammer. So it's worth checking out, and just be brave and be adventurous. Have fun and really check out the boundaries of your hobby, because there's just so many people who enjoy the same hobby, and it's cool to go find people that are just as passionate about it as you are.
Absolutely.
All right, so this first episode is getting a little long. We had a pretty long introduction, and we
It's our
just kind of,
first podcast.
yeah, we're really explaining kind of the goals, and we're setting up context for future episodes. So I don't think future episodes will necessarily be as long. Our next episode will probably either be a preview of us going into Adepticon, or maybe it'll just be an update from Adepticon. So we'll figure out what our next episode is going to be. But we definitely want to give you all an update when we play that first game, what our experience was. And we hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. We hope you guys are interested in the premise. Let us know if there's anything else you would like to hear of our perspective of being new to playing Warhammer.
Yes, enjoy our journey, the pains and the joy that we get in joining this part of the hobby of joining 40K. It's going to be interesting. We're brand new. This is our first foray into it. I think it's going to be entertaining. uh, from your guys' aspect, but I'm really looking forward to it because this is completely different than what we're used to. Star Wars Legion is one thing, and this is completely different. There's so much to explore with 40K, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And if you even if you've been playing it for a long time, maybe it's like uh, rekindling memories in yourself of like, oh, I remember when I first started playing this game now, what it was
Right.
like when I collected my first army. So I think there's a little bit of something for everyone to enjoy. And if you're a new player like us, I think it's you can watch our journey and learn from it yourself. So
And
we
follow along with us. Try to get your armies ready to go in a realistic goal. Try to follow us along. It'd be a lot of fun to have a small community of people that are all on the same journey as us, and we can all share in that experience. I think that would be really cool.
yeah, we might not be collecting the same faction as you, but maybe there's little things that you can take from our experience and what we've learned along our 6 month journey so far plus. So um, we just hope you guys enjoyed it, and anybody who is still listening at this point in the podcast, thank you for sticking with us this far, and we hope you tune in to our next episode.
Yes, we really appreciate you. Thank you for listening.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.